Hello and welcome to the Townham Podcast. It's season 3, episode 21 on this record equaling night. You're very welcome to the show and enjoying the sunshine. Gally, how are you, pal?
Bank holiday Monday. Get in. Evening. I thought I'd spice it up for
not even rushing in the door to do these pods, pal.
Yeah. About all day. It's definitely sun-kissed. What is the crack?
I think you've sunstroke, pal. All good. Gally, we've mentioned it on the past few shows, the inevitability that Patrick James Hubin was going to do this record. And tonight was the night he equaled it. What a way to equal it. If you're going to do it, a hat-trick in one game, it just, it's the way to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a complete stark contrast of the last couple of weeks. Only Pat Hubin does it. Do you know that kind of way? You get that buzz of course. You know, and it's not like it's obviously unexpected, but it's not a massive shock. You know, I mean, it is UCD, but we've played them over the last 18 months. We've really struggled. We struggled the first game of the season with them in Oriel Park. You know, even our predictions for tonight. I know Steph had a 4-0. I think I 3-1, but I was being at Oriel Park. I never back against Dundalk, no matter who we're playing. So I'd always put them in for a win, but I really wasn't expecting that kind of result. You know, when you consider what's going on over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I mean, you couldn't have written it better. I mean, the only thing that probably could have been better is if he done it against Drogheda at Oriel Park or Shamrock Rovers. I mean, you know, who cares about the opposition? But unbelievable. I mean, look, we're now looking at, you know, not that it was in any doubt, but you're now looking at the greatest striker of a generation. You know, like, you know, obviously Joey Donnelly before my time. I would have grew up playing, you know, the likes of Brian Bourne and Peter Whitnall. Even when you think back to those days, even Tiernan Mulvena in First Division, Tiernan Mulvena, you know, Early Kenny as well. You know, excellent top class strikers, but there's nobody to lay a glove on this boy. And yeah, look, unbelievable. Only Pat could do with a hat trick, you know, at Oriel Park. Powerful for him, powerful for the fans. It's a pity there's only 1,700 people watching it, but look, we kind of preempted that last Friday night on a Monday evening at 5 o'clock UCD. Look, but brilliant.
Yeah. Look, we're also joined tonight by the Dundalk Democrats, Niall Newbury. Niall, you're very welcome to the show. Niall, before we even get into the whole game, we're just waxing lyrical a little about Pat Hubin right now. And, you know, how fortunate we are to see this man play before us. But, you know, if you're going to equal the record, it was an incredible way to do it tonight, wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly was. It was like a sort of a vintage, I suppose, sort of Patrick Hubin hat-trick, you know, 2 almost trademark headers at this stage, and then obviously a penalty sending the goalkeeper the wrong way. It's Pat Hubin in a nutshell. Yeah, he won the game for Dundalk tonight. This afternoon. There's no doubt about it. A great way to cap off and equal the record. It's actually funny because just after the third goal, you know, Stephen O'Donnell made, you know, I think it was 3 changes, and those players were already ready to go before the third one went in. So it seemed to me that Pat Hubin was actually going to come off before the third one. So luckily he got a few more minutes to get the third. So yeah, it was fantastic. And I listened to you guys a few weeks back talking about Pat Hubin. I mean, you did reference the fact that, like, you know, 142 goals, which is now where it stands. I mean, you're talking about equaling a record that stood for pushing 80 years now at this point with the great Joey Donnelly. Like, I mean, 1946, I think, is when that record was initially set. Yes. Like, I'm not sure if it was you, Andrew, or Chris, or one of the other guys. You were saying, you know, the likelihood of seeing a player like that coming to any League of Ireland club and reaching that haul, just with the way football is structured and the way the League of Ireland is structured, it's virtually impossible. And you probably will never see the likes of Pat Hubin again. You know, it's because let's face it, it's 142 and counting. So he's equaled the record today. What's to say he's not going to break it now in Turner's Cross in a week against the old enemy, and, you know, go on to smash it in the second half of the season and beyond. So the real question is now, how many does he finish on? I know Pat Hubin myself. I mean, I know he'd be thinking his target. He'd be targeting 200 plus. That's the standard he sets. He sets that standard. You know, we mentioned it. I think it was after the Derry game when he came on. You know, the 2-2. I mean, just a presence like that. The thing of Pat Hubin is, you know, the standards just don't drop. and he doesn't let the players around him. He doesn't let their standards drop. And I mean, he's been a superb servant to the club, and it was a perfect afternoon for him to do it. UCD, with the greatest respect, are not the best defensive side. So a player like Pat Hoban coming up against them, even with 5 defenders, was no match today.
Yeah, Gally, and look, exactly what Niall said there. It's the perfect team to probably come up against like in UCD, but at the same time, we haven't been pulling up trees this season. So to put on a performance like that, when, let's face it, the past few results haven't been great, and we needed, like, before coming on, I was actually in my own head kind of trying to split this in two, because one, the result was massively important for Skip, the team, everything tonight, and then you've all of Patrick Cuban then as a kind of sub chapter off this. Like, the result is probably the most important thing tonight, and the way we went about it. We'll come to talk about the goals, and we did go behind early, but after that, then that was really it from UCD. They got their chance to win ahead, but there was very little then after. It was a real confidence boosting performance, and Gally, we talked about these players coming back, and would Ansley just come straight into the squad? Turns out he does.
Yeah. We'd said it for weeks, but Louis, we'd said as soon as he's fit, and like, it's as much as him being an excellent player as it is the ones who are coming behind him not really laying down a mark. I think Niall might have actually said it in the last time he was on. There's nobody really laid down a marker to say, this jersey's mine. And that was the real worry that we had over the last couple of weeks. Even if we'll go back probably as early back as probably the UCD game early in the season, where he saw Boyle and Ainsley played left back that time, but you could see he's an accomplished defender. He's got that little bit of quality that, and look, people would say tongue in cheek. I know we mentioned Sonny Nadas that have an X amount of caps at international level, but this guy's got 30, I think it's 36. I could be wrong. We quote open to criticism on that, but with abroad, it's a good level. They've played France, they've played Italy over the last couple of years, they've played Ireland. It's a decent level. Like to get 36 caps at his age. I mean, you'd expect him to hit 100 caps by the time he hits 28, 29. If he continues on that trend and was able to get back in, but that kind of composure's been badly needed. We didn't realise at the time how much of an influence he was. We kind of thought the lads would kind of pick up. We'd seen little bits from Waziri Williams and stuff, but players just go missing. They don't have that bit of consistency. Yeah, and that's Jason said the nail on the head. Composure and presence. That's what it is. I mean, that's what's badly been lacking. As much as we talk about Andy Boyle. Andy Boyle also needs that as well. Now, the queer one about that is that the first goal tonight's not a really great example to mention Andy Boyle, but he needs that, all his experience. He needs to look to his left or look to his right, and that he knows he's got an accomplished, composed presence, as Jason says, beside him, and that's what we've been missing. And it's not the only thing we've been missing, but it's that little bit of a jigsaw that might kickstart. And like you said, Chris, yeah, it's UCD, but Jesus, they badly needed that win tonight. Not a 1-0 win, we would have took it, but I mean, the performance, everything needed to come into
that's probably the most important thing out of it all, isn't it?
Yeah, like I mean, Pat Hoban's record, you almost forget that he's been that close for the last couple of weeks. We've mentioned it, but you're not even thinking about it when the game's on. It's about getting results, but not more importantly than results, because that's, you need the points on the board, but a performance was badly needed. And I even knew, I missed the first 7 or 8 minutes of the game. I just turned over just as the goal was in. I was listening to it on radio on the way down the road, but even you from the commentators and watching it and kind of reading the bits on Twitter, they wouldn't really panic. I know the goal, it's not like it's a screamer from 30 yards. We almost, you can almost give them that goal. We kind of knew the day that was in it, it just seemed that it'll be fine. And we haven't thought that for a long time. It's been a long time since the Dundalk 1-0 down and they came back from it. I know we've run away with it in the end, but, to be 1-0 down, to come back into it comfortably, I would say. I mean, like you said, Chris, UCD didn't really rock the boat after that.
No.
I mean, they were blessed in a goal. They haven't really done a lot in the game, but so badly needed. The lads would be absolutely buzzing. Like we said last Friday night that we needed maximum points. There was none of this crap of looking for 4. I have to watch me right now before 10 o'clock. But, 6 points is needed. Maximum points needed over the next couple of games before the break. Yeah. And it's a great way to start the week. Great way. Now, look, different animal on Friday night, but yeah, brilliant way to start the week. Brilliant performance. Can't fault it. Yeah,
Niall, just before we start going through the goals, Louis Ansley, you know, a player who I suppose he came in, you know, we were all looking at his experience, the level he'd been playing with at Blackburn. You know, you would say, even though he, you know, only with 1 or 2 appearances, I think, but still to even be in and around the squad, you would say he has to have something about him. He definitely brought a new element, like his distribution today, in particular, swapping wings over to Dickie Kelly was, you know, it was a completely new dimension to us today, wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly was. It's not something we've been, you know, accustomed to at the back this season for Dundalk. You know, just that sort of coolness and there's just that calmness on the ball that Louis Ansley kind of showed tonight. Just that simple, just doing the simple things really well. And I mean, like defensively, we've been something of a shambles for the most part of the season, and that's kind of coming with the inconsistency of, you know, the continuity at the back. And to say the most important thing in any great side, and the Dundalk had it for so many years with you know, Gannon, you know, Gartland, Boyle, Massey, like it's, you know, that continuity is important, and we haven't had that for a few seasons now. And I mean, I do feel that Andy Boyle and Louis Ansley are probably the 2 first choice centre halves in that position. You know, you need a bit of experience. You know, Hayden Muller, unfortunately, has had a bit of a torrid time in recent weeks at the back. Waziri Williams, you know, hasn't fared that much better. But today, you know, taking aside Boyle's mishap for the goal, it was actually a very, very good defensive display from both today, I thought. But particularly Louis Ansley, I thought it was a great return for him. I think he's been missed. He's been a big miss. People forget, you know, the last game he played was the 5-0 against Pats, where he got the clean sheet and scored. He was superb that night. So he's been a big miss, and, you know, he could be a major component now coming into the second half of the season for Dundalk.
Yeah, Gally, look, we'll start to go through the game, I suppose. It's early into the game. It's extremely warm. The Oriel Park surface has radiating heat off it. Is the best way to put it. Yeah, you know, it's a big long ball up, and you could see, you know, Boiler had to put something on it to go back to the keeper. Yeah. It's not enough. Me and Flano were kind of talking, you know, a half time on it. Is it one that Shep needs to just come out and take both players with him, the ball with him and everything, and it's put into the stand? Or is it one that Boiler just hooks the ball and then him and Sheps have a argue about it after? What way did you see it?
Yeah, there's a bit of head tennis before. Boyle, I think Boyle, I could be mistaken, I think Boyle actually gets the first header on it that goes back to the centre half from UCD, and for me, it just drops a little bit. I don't know what way the sun has come in, but he seems to get right under the ball.
Well, it is that end. It would be that end. Yeah.
It just seems to. I think he might just lose it in his sight for a split second, and it almost bounces off the top of his head. Like, he's got a head up for it, but because it goes straight up in the air, he gets no distance behind it. Now, even if you look at it again from another point of view, if he heads it properly, Shep's probably come too far out, so it probably goes over him if he heads it cleanly. So there's a wee bit of communication there. I'm assuming you can only. It's not that you can blame this. You can probably only look at the goalkeeper, because he's got, like you said, normally, now it's only 7 or 8 minutes into the game, you would come out and clean. If that happens in the 87th minute and it's 0-0, he comes out and absolutely cleans everybody. Yeah. I don't know if maybe because it's so early, he's probably expecting the simple ball back, but you know, you got to admire the UCD player. His name escapes you in a minute. Doyle.
Doyle, wasn't it?
You got to admire him. You know, he's kind of, he's jumped in on it. It's almost like a Pat Hooban. You know, he's jumped in. He hasn't given it up. He's expecting the mistake. Well, not expecting, but he's hoping for it. But a wee bit of communication, look, you'll forgive us that early. And to be honest, you can nearly just, I just got that impression, even when UCD scored and I seen the description of the goal, you could almost kind of say, look, just wipe it out. Whereas a couple of weeks ago, we couldn't.
Been so early in the matches, in particular.
It was just one of those days. I don't know if the atmosphere, I wasn't physically at the game, but it might be different for yourself.
It got very quiet right after that moment.
Yeah, I'm sure it did, because the boys in commentary got very quiet as well. But I don't know if there was that air in the place, but listening to that and reading, it just seemed to be, look, we let it happen, but we'll get back. And then even when it went to 1-1, there was no doubt we were going to win it. But for the goal itself, look, a little bit of communication. But I just think it's lost in sight with the sun. I think it's just bounced straight up. But I mean, ideally, what you want is goalkeeper out. He probably was afraid of his life to injure any more players if he came out and clean everybody out of it. You know, and you know, I just think the striker's pounced on it well. He's capitalised on a mistake. But look at, the performance that came after that, you can forgive them early doors. You know, like I mean, that's like Stephen O'Donnell won't be happy, but look, it pales into insignificance when we look at the result in the performance after that. Because, like you say, it was all UCD really done.
Yeah. Niall, what way did you see the opening go?
Yeah, I mean, I do think it was probably a lack of communication or communication mishap. I mean, like Shepherd's coming for it. He's already committed himself. You know, it kind of comes off Boyle. They nearly clatter into each other then. Do you know what I mean? And then suddenly Jake Doyle is, is scoring the easiest goal he's going to score in his career, I'd imagine. The atmosphere, again, I mean, like it was always going to be, this was referenced in the pre-match. I mean, it was always going to be difficult, bank holiday, Monday, 5 o'clock kickoff, UCD in the sun. I mean, it's not exactly, it's very hard to get cheered up for that one. And there was a smaller crowd there tonight. And obviously, the goal is a real kick in the teeth at that point. I mean, and it's sort of, I do feel it's a bit of a blot in the copybook because, I mean, like, look, UCD, ultimately we've won the game 4-1. Fair enough. But, UCD should not be seen as a barometer as to how good or bad we actually are at the moment. I mean, I still feel there's we won 4-1 today without actually being superb. If that makes sense. I mean, yes, we were the dominant team, but I think that was more down to the fact of, that was probably more down to UCD's lack of ability than maybe our own sort of attacking prowess. Excuse me. Yeah. But the goal, I mean, like Stephen O'Donnell's referenced this. I mean, like it's, and I'm sure you guys have been blue in the face saying it, and I've been saying it myself. It's every single goal we're conceding at the moment, practically all of them, maybe barring was it Kavanagh's goal against for Derry, which was a screamer. That's the only one I can think of in recent memory that was actually probably unavoidable. I mean, they're all avoidable goals. They're all defensive mishaps. They're all mistakes, and we're constantly conceding goals. And I mean, like, of that magnitude, they're all errors and they're all avoidable. I mean, yes, okay, we got back to 1-1. I know, like Andrew just mentioned, we're always going to win the game from there. I wish I shared Andrew's optimism back then because I was just thinking, I don't know what the dog you've been watching this season, Andrew, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I don't know what there was just something in it just seemed when I was listening to it, I was like, yeah, we'll go on and win this. And I don't know why, because I literally haven't thought that the whole season. I don't know if it was just maybe I got sun-kissed up in Northern Ireland, but definitely sunstroke. Yeah, it just seemed to be. I don't know what it was. It just seemed to have that and obviously when Dickie scores as well. But I just thought, no, we'll go on here. I'm sure it wasn't like that in the crowd because when you can see that area at UCD at Oriel Park and the crowd's low anyway because there's only 1,700 at it. I'm sure it was a bit of I'm sure you could hear the pins drop right all across the stand. But yeah, look, I don't know what it was. It just seemed to be that little bit of, and look, I'm saying it now because we won 4-1, but I just have that little bit of a feeling that it was there. We were due it.
Glass half full.
Well, that's true. Gally, look, I suppose another player who, we has probably improved more of late, but it definitely had a more shaky start to his Dundalk career. Johannes Yili-Coco, he had that early chance. The first one he fluffed that, and the second one, it was a great save by the keeper inside the box. But he also had the awareness, I suppose, to get in front of the defender for the penalty and to win it with the kick. A better improved performance, and I think just those two things before is probably elements that we didn't see of him before. Yeah,
and look, and I don't want to be harsh on him, but he would have to have an absolute shocker to be any worse than what he's been in some of the games this season. And it's not, look at, he's one of the new players. He's come in. Has he had a proper run at it? He definitely hasn't had the run that Conor Malley's had. So it'd be interesting to see if they can get a tune out of him with more minutes against, a Cork City the weekend or Friday night could suit him. But yeah, look, excellent. Look, he's definitely chopped at the first one. It's a decent save. Although it is Adam, but goalkeeper's reflex are decent with the sun in his face. But he's done really well for the goal. He's had decent touches before that as well. It's not like, and he's one of those players. That's where he's got to be. He's got to be in those positions. He really should be scoring, a goal every 3 or 4 games. I mean, a player like that should be getting into the box, getting in on chances, a lot more than he does or what he has been. So, it goes to show when he gets in there, he can be a nuisance for defenders and defensive midfielders. And hopefully he can kick on from that today. But yeah, look, there's brilliant it probably should score in fairness to him, regardless of the save, should score. And look, he does exactly what he's meant to do for the penalty. I haven't seen the slow down version of the penalty. Niall, you might be able to tell me, I don't think there's a lot of contact, or there's enough for just for him to go down.
I think it was a kick in the bottom of his
right.
I think it was.
Yeah, like, he got assaulted. That's what we're saying. Yeah, so
it was very clever.
Exactly. That's
penalty,
it. Exactly.
I think it was. Look, has he gone down a tad easily? I've seen the replay. Yeah, he probably has. But I mean, look, any player in the box, it feels a touch is going to go down under that kind of challenge. And I thought it was a needless challenge from Nolan on Johannes Silikoko. Yeah, look, he's had an up and down sort of time here so far. I mean, there's been some games where he's actually looked okay towards the beginning of his loan spell. In recent weeks, it's just not happened for him at all. But like you say, he made an impact today. Do you know what I mean? Particularly in the first half. But as you say, it's all about next week now. Cork City. As I keep saying, UCD are not really. It's very difficult to kind of take any sort of draw any conclusions from today's game. I feel. Do you know what I mean? It's the other teams like UCD. Let's face it, are a write-off in the league at the moment.
But in that sense, Niall, it was the ideal fixture for us because not that we were car crashed, but we were severely lacking confidence. And players were making mistakes and getting absolutely shattered, and we were getting into positions but not taking them. Like I think if we were still in Tallaght Stadium, we'd be crossing that ball in and it go nowhere. So to see two crosses there tonight, and we scored from scored 2 goals from them, that's even just. And 4 players dropping out, Elliot getting in there with Hubin as well. Like we said this a few times that, does Hubin need help sometimes? Should we maybe look to play 2 up top? And we just haven't had the option. Like I think tonight's team, the starting team, is probably the closest Skip has had to a team that he wanted to start in a long time.
Yeah. And
you can see that by the strength of our substitutions we make later on. But just to go on to just very quickly, for the equaliser, Niall, for Hubin, we're at this stage we're in 139 goals, so that gets us to 140. Cool penalty, put it through, and I as soon as I seen him step up and grab that ball, I said he's scoring that.
Yeah,
he had that confident run and pumping out of him. I don't think when he's that close to the record, anyone else was getting a penalty anyway. No one else was taking it.
Again, glass half full, Chris. He missed one against UCD in the first week of the season.
Yeah,
but
it's how he walked up.
I mean, all joking aside, I mean,
when he actually in that game when he missed that, I had a funny feeling he was going to miss that goal in the opening game of the season because the whole ground felt silent as soon as we won the penalty, and I went, oh, it's a weird kind of vibe as he's stepping up to take towards this one was like. And it was cheered on as he was stepping up, and I went, he's a lot more confidence walking up for this.
Yeah, and it was a superb penalty. I mean, like it was such confidence. He sends Moore the wrong way, basically into the bottom corner. Really puts us on our way then. And I mean, like it was just what we needed at that point. You know what I mean? Because when you go 1-0 down against UCD in that kind of atmosphere, in those surroundings, I mean, it can be very difficult to lift the whole thing up. You probably do need a goal. Reasonably quickly. I mean, because the longer that game stays 1-0 to UCD, the more difficult and the more frustrated the Dundalk team starts to get, and the crowd starts getting on the back a bit more. Considering they hadn't won in 4 matches beforehand. I mean, it's not been our best spell of late. So I mean, it was a crucial goal. It was a big moment in the game. Johannes obviously, buying the penalty in some respects, and then Hoban. Dispatching it with minimal fuss. It was a terrific time to get it. And I mean, then obviously you're 1-1 to get the second goal from Dan Kelly.
Yeah.
When we got it 3 or 4 minutes before the halftime break,
that changes what Skip's going to say at halftime.
Yeah, it does. And I sense that it just absolutely killed UCD completely. Because they're 1-0 up, they're defending. 1-1, they're still defending. That's still a very good result. But 2-1, you're looking through the UCD team. There's not really anyone there that you're going to be worried about getting them back into the game. And in a sense, they didn't create too much throughout the game. The goal they got was basically a gift from us. In the 7th minute. I mean, Daniel Kelly has also had a tough enough couple of weeks. I mean, hasn't had his best performances. I'm sure he'd be the first to admit. It was great to see him get on the score sheet as well. It was a big goal for him, and hopefully that's a catalyst now for him to sort of, rediscover some of the form that we know he's capable of. Yeah.
Gally, you said earlier, Pat Hooban scores, real Pat Hooban goals tonight, but probably Daniel Kelly's is a little bit like what you expect from him too. He's just that smartness to sit in between. If when you look at the replay of the second goal for ourselves, Pat Hooban jumps up for that header, and there's 3 UCD defenders all in the line staring at Pat Hooban.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Dickie Kelly's gone. He sees Pat Hooban jumping and is already starting to race towards the goal, going, I know exactly where this is going. It's heading towards goal. If I get a nick on this, the keeper's doing nothing.
They've almost forgotten he's there. And what's worse is he's in between. I don't know if it's the actual left back on the day or it's just a midfielder defender. But he's actually,
I think it is, because I think they've all come over that side. Yeah, it's left back.
It's actually, I think it's Nolan, is it? I think he's kind of getting Nolan. And Nolan,
it's just gotten in between them, and it's almost like it's a striker's goal. I mean, I know that Dickie Kelly's not a striker, but it's a Pat Hooban goal. It's we'll come back here, Tiernan Mulvaney, Christy Fake. It's that type of goal, and it's not all about running down the wing and getting on the end. Like he's got himself in nice and tight in between the centre halves or in between the defenders, and I think Andy Myle will be more annoyed about that. I mean, look at Pat Hooban's goals later on, headers and stuff like that. Pat Hooban gets up against most of the centre halves in the league, but that type of goal, most coaches would be really annoyed because he's just stepped in. I mean, he didn't even need to run for it. He had so much space between. When you think about the space between those centre halves and the keeper, he's been able to exploit it completely. It's a great cross, and it could be, I don't know if it's Darrell Lee crossing it in, but it's he's just been able to step in, finish it straight. It's a brilliant goal for him. And like I said, confidence has been lacking over the last couple of weeks. He's been in and out, bit of injury, stuff like that. But great for him. Look, Dickie Kelly's a fan favourite up there. I mean, the story of how he came to the League of Ireland, he was playing Leinster football, but the step up in 18 months is frightening when we had signed him. But look, when he's on it, he's excellent. It's just, unfortunately, just hasn't been at the races for a lot of the season. But look, hopefully that starts. That's the catalyst from going forward. Because, if you look at the squad and the signings that have come in, when everybody's at their best, you probably are talking Dickie Kelly and Ryan O'Kane. That's when everybody's in their pump. Tulloch is definitely a nuisance when he comes in there. But if you're picking a lineup based on their absolute best, those are probably your 2 at the minute. So it's great for him to get the goal. You usually be very unhappy about it. Whatever's happened tonight with the result, that'll be a nightmare. They'll analyse over that one. But the fact that he's just able to step in front of them is just frightening.
But it was such good alertness from Daniel Kelly as well. I mean, it was a real poacher's finish, and I mean, it was I watched it back. It was absolutely atrocious.
Yeah.
On UCD's.
They're just all flat-footed.
Like the ball.
Freedom ball watching.
Yeah, like Hoban puts his header in the box and it almost goes into orbit. And it comes back down. Nobody's reacted on the UCD defence. And Kelly just nipped in ahead of Alex Nolan, who also gave away the penalty, incidentally. Definitely had a day to forget. And
even a couple of weeks ago now, if that goal comes across a couple of weeks ago, exactly. Yeah. And if we did that a couple of weeks ago, nobody steps in there to get that because the confidence was just, it just wasn't there. Even if that game's 0-0 and that incident occurs, maybe in the 85th minute, we probably don't step in and get it because we're just probably, especially playing against 10 men, we're just completely bad at that stage. And nobody's really going for it. Where he's on the money, on the ball, perfect for him. And it's a great goal. It's a great goal for us. UCD won't be happy, but fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, even Flano's comments there, we were so poor at times in the first half. And I think he means as in that sort of penetration that we proved for that goal was lacking at times in the first half. But when the opportunity did come and we took it, was probably the catalyst for what we seen then in the second half. And the second half was a much more assured display. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of like you say. I mean, the goal 4 minutes before the break, it completely changes the whole mood, the whole dressing room talk. It changes everything. I mean, if that game goes in 1-1 at half time, there's no telling will it be the same outcome. We drew 1-1 with UCD in the first week of the season. I mean, we lost twice against them away from home last year. They have been a bit of a bogey team for us in the last couple of seasons, and there's no doubt about that. We haven't actually picked up a whole lot of points off them in the last 2 years. Despite their league position. So yeah, it changes the whole thing. Second half, I don't think UCD laid a glove on Dundalk in the second half at all. I mean, it was completely one-way traffic. It finished 4-1 in the end. It could have been 5-6-7, 8-1 on another night. Cameron Elliott had a great chance. Ryan O'Kane hits the post, or maybe that was in the first half, sorry.
No, second half, yeah.
Was that second half post? Second half, it was. So
because we just made it 3-1, and then was straight after that. Then was Ryan's chance.
Yeah, so there's plenty of chances.
For Pat's second goal, a good chance at the end. John Martin's one at the end as well. Yeah. For Pat's second goal, Niall, it's hard work down. I think the difference that Dan Kelly brought tonight is. And, you often hear managers say it about their wide men. Sometimes you want a little bit of chalk on their boots because that means to stretch the game right out. Like he was nearly used every inch of the pitch. He was receiving these long angle passes from Anstey throughout the match and was really causing problems and that long penetrating angled ball out wide. But as a result, he drew in a couple of defenders, was able to lay it back to Davis. Something we've probably seen more often from Davis is his quality of his crossing. He's getting better and better the more games he's played. That is absolutely on the money what Pat Hoban wants to receive as the striker. And, it was an excellent cross and an excellent finish. Oh,
it was trademark stuff. Like that's what Pat Hoban does. I mean, that's what he's built his reputation on. Like I'd love to. I'm not sure how many of the 142 are actually headers, but I think it'd be good for somebody to actually look up that stat because I mean, that's exactly what he wants, as you say, Chris. I mean, it was a pinpoint cross right on the head, and he just plants it into the netting. You know what I mean? I mean, it's exactly what Pat Hoban does. It's what he's built his reputation on. And yeah, Archie Davis, as we've mentioned a few times. I mean, you can see him he's becoming better and better as the weeks progress. I actually thought he was actually one of the few, maybe in Tala, who actually might have took some credit. I'm not saying he played necessarily brilliantly, but he was getting balls into the box and stuff and such. Today he had a lot more joy in that regard. I mean, it was a wonderful cross, and we know he's capable of that. I mean, he's really developed that in the last. Again, a tricky start of life in the League of Ireland. He's really developing into maybe one of the first names on the team sheet now at Oriel, and I mean, he's really making that right back bear his own. But yeah, it was a good goal. I mean,
show the power of Hoban though as well. He's in between defenders, getting there before the keeper, and it's about there's no one saving that. There's very little defense able to defend against. The quality of the ball that comes in, if you give that to a striker like Pat Hoban, there's only one outcome.
Yeah, totally. 9 times out of 10, that's rattling the onion bag basically. It's there's no. Pat's got a great record at that. You know what I mean? And you go back to years ago, even in maybe 2013, 14. Darren Meenan putting these balls into the box and Hoban is putting his head through them. I mean, this is what he does. You got to give him the service. There's no point. And that was probably a problem we had earlier in the season when Pat was out.
Yeah.
Everyone kept saying, we need Pat Hoban back. That's why we're not winning games, yada, yada, yada. But my argument back then was, well, even if Pat was in the team, we're still not providing the service. So it probably wouldn't make much of a difference if he was in the team or not, because you need to give a player like that kind of service. He needs the ball in the box and put it right in his head. And that was a trademark Pat Hoban goal, and a 3-1 early enough in the second half as well as it was. Really puts the game to bed. Even for this Dundalk team, I think puts the game to bed. Or maybe not. But yeah, it did. I mean, it
was this time, yeah.
Yeah, luckily for us, it turned out to be the case, and we just went on from there and completely dominated the second half. Probably the most dominant display I've seen from us, maybe apart from the Pats game, the 5-0. But the second half was just completely one-way traffic. I mean, I'll have to look back. I'm sure Pats had at least a few chances in that game. UCD just offered absolutely zilch in the second half, and it was such a demanding, confident and comfortable second half, as you'll see, for Dundalk.
Yeah, Gally, I mean, we've been talking about our crossing and how aimlessly they've been at times, but that was just on the money, but it's down to, Dan Kelly creating a little bit of space, hugging the touchline, being able to lay it off, perfect pass right back to him, and, able to whip in that cross first time. And that's, bread and butter stuff for Pat Hoban, isn't it?
Yeah, like Niall said, that's what we've been missing. And even if you go back further than that, there was probably 10 or 11 passes before, but what we've been giving out over the last couple of weeks, there was everything was, they were looking for 47 passes before they get into the box. Whereas this one, little bit of football in the back, and then Boyle just sends one down the line. And, you're talking about a 40, 45-yard pass. That's what we've been missing over the last couple. We haven't had that direct football, not long ball football. Just that, there's space. There's
but they're angled passes,
we seem to take this option all the time of, whereas it was like you can't score a goal unless you use the two central midfielders. That's the way we were playing. Like, let's get the ball out wide. Let's use the wingers. It's dropped perfectly for the lads. Dickie Kelly's on the money. And that, like, Niall, that is a Pat Hoban goal. Like, there is nobody in full tilt that's going to stop that into the net. Apart from hitting the actual stanchion or the crossbar, nothing stops that. It's perfectly met. He's on the pace. And like I was. Although I'm delighted with the goal, I'm delighted to see that we're just playing that wide ball out and using that all, because too many times we come into games and we've decided to play 47 touches. Like it wouldn't a training game narrow with the midfielder. Let's use that. We have some of the best wingers in the league at our disposal. Let's use them. We have a full back there, like Niall said. We'd mentioned Archie Davis last couple of weeks. Of all the signings we've probably had, that's someone who I didn't rate at all. Like, I seen him play the first game of UCD season. I was like,
we were probably saying Muller was a better right back.
Every ball was in the carriage in Lisnadara. Like, he couldn't cross. Like, I thought everything was 40. Like, I was like, this boy can't. There's no way Muller loses a spot. And then Muller had played centre half that night because I think he was missing. And Annesley had played left back. But I didn't rate Archie Davis at all. I thought, no, this would be a squad player at most. But like Niall said, last couple of weeks, he's been excellent. I'm not into I don't want the ball to go long all the time once he's football, but sometimes the game calls for that. Nice little bit of play before. I think he probably counted maybe 11, 12 passes before the goal, including the cross. Exactly what we needed. And look, no better man on the end of it than Pat Hoban at the minute. Like, excellent. I know it's UCD. Look, we'll take that with a pinch of salt, but look at 4-1, we would have bit your hand off against anybody, last week for it.
So now we're at 1-4-1 now. But those two big chances you mentioned earlier, Ryan O'Kane, cuts in and takes 2-3 people out of the game, hits the post, and was very lucky to come back out off the stanchion out the other side. Yeah. And Danny Elliott's mazy run deserved a goal.
I know it was disappointing. I mean, like, he's done the hard part. He's evaded the challenge of, I think it's 2 UCD defenders. I think he's left one of them on their arse as well. Like, and suddenly he's face with the goalkeeper now. I don't want to take anything away from the save from Moore, but I mean, you're expecting your striker to score there. Like, I just think he's done the hard part. I
think he went that far. He was going to go. He probably ran out of steam.
It was almost in slow motion how it all happened and transpired. I mean, like, you seem to have the ball for an eternity and just couldn't put the finishing touch on it, unfortunately. And maybe that's the difference between an Elliott and a Hoban, perhaps. And that's no disrespect. There's no shame in being second fiddle to Pat Hoban necessarily. But and then you got the Ryan O'Kane one again. He wriggles away from 2 UCD defenders, and this curls this lovely shot that bounces in off the post and nearly hits the other one. Look, come here. It was good to see it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, it was 4-1. It could have been 6-7-1 very handily. I mean, it was a good all-round performance. There wasn't really anyone, like, obviously Shepherd, probably apart from the goal. I mean, he hasn't had anything to do really in the game. No. He probably should have paid to 15, 20 quid into the match apart from that. Like, I mean, it's he's not really been tested or had any sort of anything to do apart from that. So, I mean, it was comfortable as you're going to get. But look, you still have to play the game. And how many times have we seen? And we've seen it against UCD with this Dundalk team where a game's there for them and they just can't get that. They can't get that energy and they can't get that urgency. And in spite of the surroundings, and I think today they've done that today. And look, they needed it because I mean the last few games have not been pleasant, just to say the least. And they definitely needed some sort of confidence boost and win. And a 4-1 win looks very good on paper. But now it's all about bringing it into Turner's Cross now on Friday and hopefully going into the break with another 3 points and looking a lot more healthy maybe in the context of the race for Europe.
Yeah, and look, to Gally, just to bring us to the 4-1, it's 1-4-2, probably what we're mostly talking about here. Like Niall just said, there's a post-match interview with Pat there, and he said, during play, he looked over at the bench and seen the triple substitute coming, and he knew he was going to be pulled off. And next minute, he whipped in that ball and Pat's forced to it. Like,
I'd say he was first. I'd say he was thinking, this is absolutely payoff. There's no way they're going to take me off now. I want to get forward. But no, look, when the decision's been made on the bench, I suppose there's not a lot you can do. But yeah.
But then he gets his standing ovation on the way out. He's
Yeah,
got a hat
of course.
trick. He's equal to record. He gets a standing ovation. You know, it's made for Pat coming off, tell the truth.
Yeah,
And
like,
if you can take Pat Hoban off, take him off after he's got a hat trick.
That's what I mean. Like, and it would have been interesting to see if he if Niall had said the substitutes. It would have been interesting to see what the crowd would have been like if he was on 2 and he's coming off. That would have been really interesting. Because over the last couple of weeks,
I think that's going to say it. Anything Pat's reaction would have been interesting.
I know. Like, I mean, I don't think there would have been too many. A brave man to take Pat Hoban off.
Times. Yeah.
You know. And like, especially if the result, look, a touch wood, the result went our way. But if it didn't, imagine the crack, the scenes. It would have been absolutely. We wouldn't have had this podcast. We would have gone live from the Get Out of Barracks. But it would have been just, look, a brave man to take Pat Hoban off when he scored 2 against Lakes UCD. But look, I mean, it's written in the stars. You're about to come off. The ball comes in absolutely nailed on. Like, what a way to go. Like, he could have just went straight to the substitutes bench with the celebration. Just like easy stuff, you know, like when a night's made for you, it's made for you. And look, he's equal the record. You know, you'd fully expect him now to beat it on Friday night. You know, it's only man, like you're talking, what are we on now? You're probably looking at, by the end of the season, you're hoping for 150. I mean, that's what you're looking at. That's probably what he has in his head, you know, that type of, those type of numbers. But I mean, look, it was absolutely made from. The goals are made from tonight, the type of goals, what he does, headers, penalties, strength, pace, timing, made from. All he hasn't done is scored a screamer from 20 yards. But I mean, look, everything fell into his lap today.
Yeah, it was a great goal. I mean, like it's again, I think it's Leahy with the cross this time.
Yeah.
From the opposite flank, and
his crossing's got much better as well as the season's gone on, hasn't it?
It has, yeah, and you know, and it's kind of, this one's kind of gone to the far post, and Hoban's met it. I think he's got in between again a couple of UCD players again, and it's a towering header really. He's leapt for this one. I think it's as you say, Andrew. He probably saw the boys on the touchline and goes, I'm putting my head, I'm scoring this, I'm getting this level today. I mean, that's the kind of nature of his character. He always wants more. I think he always demands more from himself and his teammates around him. I think that's why he's such an important cog in whatever we're trying to build here. I mean, like, the only problem is, you know, he's in his 30s now, so you're not going to have him forever. How do you replace, and you guys mentioned it yourselves, how do you replace a player like Pat Hoban? I don't personally think it's possible in this day and age to get a player like that.
I still don't think, even if you look at him now, what are we, 31, 32, is he? 31?
31, I think.
I don't think
31, yeah.
There's no, if you were to get a pick of a player right now in the league, there's nobody in the League of Ireland that is that can that's on the same level as him when he's at his best. There is absolutely nobody in the league as good as him. And I think we had a whole show pretty much dedicated to that topic a couple of weeks ago, where we were like, who would you even get in? We couldn't even come up with a name.
The problem is he walks into every other squad.
Every single squad.
Yeah.
And he walks in every single squad in Ireland. Like, that includes the North, Linfield. He walks into anything. And it's crazy how good he is. And I think you
could have said the same for Chris Shields. Like, the problem is,
of course, yeah.
Every so often we've had these players at the club and they've just become irreplaceable. They've grown into stature while at the club that it's actually made, you know, we've never needed to replace them. We've mentioned it last week. It turns out the replacement we needed for Robbie Benson was Robbie Benson coming back.
Yeah. And then we did, I remember years ago when it was,
this is the same.
We really worried, like, how do you replace Richie Towell? And that was a real panic. Like, people like, how do you replace 30 goals in season? And Kenny done it. But this isn't the same. This is not a...
Yeah, but Daryl Horgan was the same then.
That's it, yeah. You got...
There was a conveyor belt of how do we replace.
Kenny always found that way, but when it comes to this type of player, like, there's a reason he was re-signed, because nobody can do what he does. And look, I know it didn't work out from over, but to our benefit, it didn't work out from over there. But look, I don't even know how... There is no, for me, there's nobody, I haven't seen anybody like Pat Hoban in the League of Ireland in all the years I'm watching. Like Niall said at the start, goals-wise, we won't see anything like it. Like, I just don't see how a player comes along and stays at the club that long. I know he's had 2 stints, but you know, you're talking 15 goals a season for a decade. That's what you're looking at. You know, if you break it down evenly, it's mental. Nobody produced that again. But there's nobody. You'd have to change the way you play nearly, you know, or just hope for the best with what you can sign. But look, we'll get another, you know, if he keeps himself fit, we've another 3 or 4 years top football out of him at least. Knowing him, he probably played these 40.
Yeah, probably, yeah. The thing I do like when Pat tells that story, though, I like to think that the ball falls at Leahy's feet. He glances over at the bench, realizes he's going to be substitute, scores a goal, and glances back over to see if the ball's come back down again. I'm not going off. Hang on. It's typical Pat. Sean Newbury just kind of commenting in there that that Skip needs to be really hammering this home now. That this is how you capitalize on these sort of teams, and get us into this mentality, I suppose, for Friday. Like if we break, Niall, some of the stats down from tonight, we had 25 shots. It's been a long time since we had that many shots, I think, in a game. 11 on target. We had 76% possession. We had 621 passes, which had 82% accuracy. Like there's winning a game, and then there's winning a game convincingly. And I know everyone's comments here tonight is we can't get too carried away. Same as we can't get too carried away when we get a defeat. We can't get too carried away with a victory here either, especially when we think of the levels where UCD are and where we hope to achieve to. But that's a real confidence booster. And I think the other thing that I really took as a massive thing from it, the 5 substitutes tonight, Niall, like we had Wardy, Martin, Doyle, Muller, Malley, none of them starting tonight. So Skip was actually able to break them in, get them in a comfortable environment on a football pitch where we're leading a game and we're cruising it. And now they can really show off what we do. Like you said, John Martin, so unlucky not to score another one tonight. Yeah, that's how he would have. That's how Skip would have wanted to breed in the majority of those players, and Wardy to come in and just control a game when it's basically won.
Absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned earlier earlier on, Chris. I mean, it's probably the strongest bench we've had all season. Most of the season our bench has had 2 goalkeepers, and it's been scattered with a lot of under 19 players, etc., and also players who just clearly aren't fit in some cases too. Today was a lot different. You're able to bring on the likes of these players. You know what I mean? Like it certainly looked a lot healthier. And these players also coming on and sort of having some sort of impact in the game as well also helps. Yeah. I mean, like John Martin was tremendously unlucky not to get himself on the score sheet. It was a great save from Keane Moore. Keith Ward, we all know what Keith Ward offers off the bench.
Wardy was everywhere. As soon as he came on, he wanted the ball as much as he could.
And that's probably where he's at his best. At the stage of his career, he's coming off the bench and like he done against Sligo, for argument's sake, just making that impact. That's what he is. I think he's a really good impact player, and that's what he does. Paul Doyle, I thought had a decent stint on the pitch as well today. He's a player who's still to come back to full fitness, but I mean, he's somebody who'll be a real asset in midfield for us in the second half of the season, you would hope. Hayden Muller, look, difficult for Muller and Malley. I mean, 2 of them were probably dropped from Friday night, didn't have the best games. Sometimes you need to do that, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, absolutely. Malley, I mean, like Muller hadn't really had the opportunity to be dropped. Malley, on the other hand, has been an ever present, but maybe needs to work a bit harder at times off the ball. And maybe O'Donnell was trying to portray a message out to some of the players here that players are coming back now. They're probably going to make 1 or 2 signings as well in the July transfer window. There's going to be more bodies, so hopefully we'll be looking at a much healthier picture in terms of squad depth coming into Europe in the second half of the season, because we're still going to need it. I still don't want to be getting carried away with the result today, but I do agree. I think the performance level, some of the stats you just mentioned there, Chris, are quite encouraging, because at the end of the day, you can only play what's put in front of you, not using no cliche, but that's just the reality. And how many times have we seen Dundalk not play to, or how many times have we seen Dundalk drop their standards against teams that are in the bottom, that are situated in the bottom positions in the league? We saw it quite a lot last season. We see it this season. Today it was just about getting the job done, and they tore UCD to shreds basically, and that's the best we could have hoped for. Because I personally would have taken a scrappy 1-0, 3-2 win morning, because I mean, just the way it's been going, you're kind of going into this game nearly fearing the worst, just the way things have been going. So, and especially when it goes 1-0 to UCD, you're taking a 2-1 scrap every day of the week at that point. So happy days. 4-1 is a very healthy looking scoreline.
Yeah, especially going into Friday night against the Liam Buckley's Cork. It's
a different animal now, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Liam Buckley's no dope. I mean, he's been around the league a long time. He went into Sligo. A lot of people were surprised. I remember, not outraged, but I remember a lot of people saying it was a mad appointment at Sligo. The majority of people were 100%, and he really shrewd operator in the window. I'd be interested to see who Cork sign. It's just as well we're playing them now, maybe not a couple of weeks' time, but shrewd operator, really good coach. Liam Cowney's in with him as well.
When you talk about Sligo thinking, We talked about Sligo thinking it was a mad appointment. I think it was a mad decision to get rid of him. Because you look where Sligo are now at the table. They're now in a real battle after today's results. Cork, 4 wins on the bounce. The form team in the league. Ever since we done them in those circumstances, they've just completely gone from strength to strength. They're now giving themselves a real chance of survival, which looked very unlikely when Liam Buckley came in that interim role. I mean, that's going to be a fierce, tough game on Friday first. And Cork are going to be a massive step up on UCD. That maybe we wouldn't have expected. It's probably not a great time to play Cork, so it's going to be a tough game. I mean, Buckley seems to have them well organised. They're getting results. They still have a limited squad in terms of, on paper, but he seems to be getting a tune out of them. And, it's probably sure to be a packed Turner's Cross now against, the old rivalry reignited. The game in Oriel, obviously, is still going to sting as well. So there's going to be a lot of subplot and sort of going into that on Friday. So it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a very tough one for us.
The only thing with Cork is, like, I seen them last week at Drogheda, and they took their goal very well, but I thought they allowed Drogheda to play a lot of football in front of them, which can be dangerous. They do have a couple of players who can unlock it, and I just thought if Drogheda had a little more touch of class about them, they could have at least got a draw out of the match. Instead, they left empty-handed. But the problem is also that in a Buckley team, if he gets ahead, you forget about it, because he's, there's dark arts, there's everything thrown in there. He knows how to grind out a result, and it's starting to come through. But that's all coming through in the Cork team, and you can see it now. Like there tonight, you're thinking, what was it, 87th minute or 83rd minute or something like that? It's 1-1, and next minute they center, go down the other end and stick it in the net. There you go.
And we were saying, you're saying you would have, even though, and I agree with Niall, we said it last week, I take a scrappy 1-0 tonight, but at least you're not going to Turner's Cross now on the back of a scrappy 1-0. You're going there.
Exactly.
I know it's UCD, but you've got that performance behind you now. The mental attitude will have changed. It's in their brains, right? Like when we get the ball down, and like Niall saying, the fact that we have a strong bench now as well. I mean, I mentioned Conor O'Malley. Conor O'Malley, I think he could be a top footballer. He just doesn't seem to. I think a time on the bench might do in the world of good. I think there's no doubt there's a footballer in there. I think he's top class. Himself and Anthony Lewis, but a little bit of a break won't do anybody any harm. And you're hoping that he can just carry that a little bit into Friday night. Big pitch in Turner's Cross, it'll be packed.
Just going to say that
it'll be packed. Yeah. And now you're looking forward to that game. You're not saying, right, we're taking a half-hour game into from Monday night into Friday. It's not great, but let's get the 2-week breaks coming up. So it's a real chance to kind of lay down something to come back to. Looking forward to it. It's all eyes on Turner's Cross for Friday night.
Yeah, and Niall, the last time we went down there, skipped through a couple of surprises that Hooban came into the team and Dan Kelly came straight into the team. And we're looking at, we're nowhere near fit enough to play. Now we've got 2 players who were in exceptional form tonight, who seem to be really back onto their palm. So it's a different Dundalk team, but we need to be 2-3 levels above what we even seen there tonight to really have a good chance down there.
I think so, yeah. Just with the way Cork are playing, like the game down Turner's Cross earlier in the season was probably, I still maintain, was probably our worst performance of the season from us, I think, and that's probably saying a lot because we've had quite a few stinkers. But I mean, I think the one in Cork was particularly bad, and on the basis of that same day, Cork were actually woeful themselves. Is why I'm saying that. Obviously, such as the madcap nature of the League of Ireland this season, the landscape of both clubs has completely changed. Particularly at Cork. Every game's got a different feel to it. Like, you can play the same team 3 times in a month in this league, and they're all going to be different matches. I think that's just the way the league is at the minute. I mean, looking at even looking at the results tonight and the way the table keeps shifting, it's just everyone's beating each other, and there's no real consistency. Like Rovers, okay, in fairness to them, starting to show a bit of consistency now. Cork are actually starting to show consistency in terms of winning 4 in a row, and UCD, unfortunately for them, are showing consistency in the sense that they're losing every game. But aside from that, there's no team really that's shown any sort of consistent form. I mean, look at Derry today, for example. I actually watched the second half of that when I got home, and then watched the second half of Drogheda and Shells, which kind of shows how little of a life I actually have these days. But I mean, it's the perils of League of Ireland. But I mean, it's just every game. It's very hard to call any match at the moment, and It's Cork. It's going to be a totally different game to the one we played in Turner's Cross earlier in the season. But we are going to have to raise our level still, even on today. I think. I mean, like today was a great result and a great confidence boost, but I still think, UCD are essentially a first division team playing in the Premier, and we can't get away from that fact either. Look, we've got the result today. We've done the business on the pitch, but the thing with this Dundalk team is we've been doing that in games. We haven't been carrying it forward. Let's put a run together now. Let's put a bit of consistency on it. Let's go into the mid-season break, as Andrew says, with a real boost, and looking maybe more confident and in the context of potential European qualification, which is still going to be a huge challenge given how the league's going at the moment.
Yeah. Look, and Gally, I suppose the thing is that when you look at the Cork squad, Keane Coleman, Ali Gilchrist, Tunde Olabi, he had that one chance in Drogheda and finished it when they messed up. But Rory Keaton in particular as well, on great form. So you can't take them lightly because they've plenty of threats there, and we got to go up a level from we were tonight.
Yeah, and the thing Niall had referenced the last game, not the Oriel Park match, the one in Turner's Cross, which I agree was a shocker. But one thing Cork have that they probably haven't had for years is pace. They're really fast, really quick across the ground. John Caulfield's team probably weren't as quick, a bit more physical, could play a bit of ball, but they've got pace everywhere. Like
Olabi stretches the game for them.
Ridiculous. And these were players plucked.
Harassed.
Probably no right sign in them. Yeah.
Up in Drogheda last week, he was just constantly on the end.
Exactly. So physical. And that would be when Buckley took that job, music to his ears. Look at this squad. He probably wondered why nobody else could get a tune out of them. Albeit just Colin Healy. But they were a real trial. Like Niall says, a different animal. They're a different animal anyway. Even if Colin Healy was still the manager, we're talking a couple months ago. But a Liam Buckley team set up against Dundalk. Liam Buckley's been around a long time. They know what they're going to get. And like I said, I'm just glad we're playing them now, maybe on the run into the break, rather than playing them in end of July when the transfer window's been open. Buckley's able to, make a few shrewd signings like he normally does. But I'd worry about it. But you're hoping, like Niall said, that level of tonight's got to go up. But I mean, you're hoping that now they really get the wind between their sails here and think, right, I'm getting a run out here. Such and such is on the bench. I hope I kept my spot tonight. Big pitch on Friday night. You hoping the weather's going to be decent as well. It all, it plays into a really good game. I think I said the exact same thing within the Turner's Cross earlier in the season, and it was a shocker, an absolute shocker. But you're hoping now, mid-season break, without sounding cliche, now's the time to get your 6 points. Take a couple. Now, look, it could go the other way.
If you take an unbeaten run in, you take unbeaten as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and maybe come Friday night, you don't want to take a break. You're on that good of a run, you don't really want the break. But I think these lads in particular, no matter what outcome for Friday, these probably need a break. No game, maybe in a couple of weeks. Sit back, look, regroup, reset the buttons on training, and go for it. But you want to send them off with 6 points from the weekend. It's just a pity we couldn't turn over a few points last week. But yeah, look, I think it's a boost for everybody, staff, club, everybody, fans going down, because fans will go down. If there's no game for now, talking 2.5 weeks, there'll be no game Friday night. There should be a good crowd around Turner's Cross on Friday evening. Yeah, so it's a big game, really big game. I won't say the biggest game so far, but it's definitely up there. I mean, it's got to be up there considering, the way we've gone over the last couple of weeks. And now the team that's gone out tonight, will it be a similar team Friday night? We don't know, but I mean, they haven't done themselves any harm. Yeah, so it's a big game, really is. And it's a big game anyway, but I think it's taken on more importance now after tonight's result.
Yeah, we'll move on to what's probably going to be the easiest man in a match competition that we've ever had to do. If anyone else wants to get in and be a part of that, I want a little bit more than just man in a match. I want a reason behind them. Gally, I'll come to you first. This should be handy.
Yeah, and do you know what the mad thing is? Darrell Leahy's going to feel very hard done by. He's a cracker, and so did Archie Davis. But I mean, there is no competition for tonight. I mean, look, there's only one man. I mean, and I was thinking back earlier on. I don't know how many pizzas we've given out. We probably haven't given as many pizzas for Pat Hogan as we think. It's always been a Craig Slaughter or something like that over the years. But yeah, look, we don't even need to debate it tonight. And look, I can probably give him out man of the match for next Friday as well if he turns up at all in Turner's Cross. But yeah, look, Pat Hogan, record breaker. Well, record equal, he'll break it the next couple of weeks. Sensational, yeah. There's no issue there.
Niall?
No question, Pat Hogan. 10 out of 10. No contest. No contest. It's the easiest one I've ever had. Yeah, I mean,
I remember Nathan Shepherd one night got a really straightforward one, and there was an argument for one or two, but I don't think we've ever had a more straightforward.
I think it was the one against Rovers that time, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Unbelievable in that match. Yeah, look, it's Pat all day as well, and I think we'll give it to Paul Casey. He said Louis Anzi looked really, really good. Big improvements at the centre back. Leahy excellent as well as Ryan O'Kane, and Dickie Kelly's getting fitter, but Pat Hoban just does what Pat Hoban does. So I think, Paul Casey, congratulations, you are our man of the match pizza winner, and thanks as always to Tony's Pizzeria for their continued support for our man of the match competitions, and of course they're on our sleeves, on our new jerseys as well. Well, look, just as a matter of, we've kind of talked a little bit about Friday's match as well. So just after the recent run of results as well, we'll have a look at the table where everything lies currently in it as well, as long as it comes up. Here we go. So Shamrock Rovers stay top on 39 points. Derry City dropping points tonight at Inchicore. They're on 35 points, level now. Pats, which is mad when you think how bad a start they had to the whole season, and now they're level with Derry City on 35 points. Gap of 2 points behind to Bows, who were 11 points ahead of us not that long ago. We've fairly chipped into that as well as Shelbourne, who, Shelbourne 5th, Dundalk 6th, both on 29 points as well. Gap of 7 points back down to Sligo. Niall, you were just talking about them there and their inconsistency. They've seemed to be getting dragged probably closer into this battle now, with Cork on 21 points and Drogheda on 20 points. It's like a mini little table going on there. And Cutwell adrift now, you would have thought, is UCD as well, only on 6 points. So that's quite, 14 points of a gap back in. There's definitely a little mini league happening right below us, which you wouldn't want to get pulled into on that. And if you look, like you just said there as well, Niall, that's four wins in a row for Cork. It's an amazing run. You think they played Shamrock Rovers and everything. I know in a madcap game as well, but you got to take advantage of these things when they come. And Shell's picking up a result there tonight as well.
Well, I think we all sort of thought. At Cork a few weeks back, along with UCD, we're going to be kind of cut off in a battle for that playoff position, actually, and that's obviously not happened at all. I mean, like Drogheda been sucked into it now. Sligo Rovers, without anyone really noticing, have been really sucked into a real battle now. The Dundalk Shells still.
There's potentially something though between Bows, Shells, and us, though, isn't there, for that fourth position right now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the top three, are probably going to be as they are. I mean, St. Pat's after today's result, I think, I now start to think that they're actually probably in a title race rather than anything else.
I got a text earlier on, made of mine a transfer. Keith Daly, he's a Pat's fan. If we're talking about, you're looking at the two managers that have recently taken up roles. Look at their run. If you look at the manager that been sacked, the run that the team has gone on, like John Daly's Pats, and you think in the transfer window where John Daly would have a lot of connections in Scotland, he might
4 straight wins.
Get themselves in there. Like they played tonight. I saw about 20 minutes of the game tonight. They were outstanding. Like Derry looked like they were playing first division football. They were, even if you look at Pat's last goal.
Derry were shambles.
They were absolutely outstanding. It's the same team, and Buckley's the same at Cork. So it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of weeks what Pat's. Because Derry will probably go, like we've a comment in there from Michael Kelly about Rory Higgins. If Derry go on a bit of a slide there, and if Pats can just avoid defeat probably against Rovers, they're definitely going to be in, because Rovers look like it's going to drop at some stage.
But also, I think of all seasons, I mean, like when you look at, I know Rovers have won the last 2 games, but as you can see in the graph there, they'd lost 2 before that against Drogheda and Cork. Yeah. I mean, they've been so inconsistent. Derry have been ridiculously inconsistent. I mean, if ever there's a year where a Pats can win the league, it's probably this season. I mean,
John Daly seems really, really kind of rejuvenated. And they have. Look, it's only 3 or 4 games, but
I know, but they have good players. Like you look at today, Mulroney, Forrester is a top player. I mean, they've got good players all around the park. Jamie Lennon's has always been a very good midfielder. They've got good players all across the park. I mean, like they've got a real chance, I think. So I think that top 3 is out of bounds for us. I'd say Bows are the ones like the 4th might even get you into Europe depending on how the cup competition goes. But Bows are the ones there that you're kind of targeting. I think they're the ones that are going to slide and slide down the table. Bows, great start they had and all. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is when you look at that, like we've actually scored more goals than Bulls now already, and you consider how good of a season Bulls and you were keeping clean sheets. But like you just said there, Niall, you look at Pat's 36 goals scored. You know, only Shamrock Rovers have scored more goals than them.
Yeah, and let's not forget
how they're performing right now.
And let's not forget little old Shells who have been, who are, got a good win again today against Drogheda. Come from behind, and actually I caught the second half of that. Pretty much, although it finished 3-2 in the end, Draper got a late goal, another good striker that Drogheda signed. But I mean, like, that was a big win for Shelbourne today. Going 1-0 down early on in the first half, that was a big win for them and keeps them in the top half. They're not going to go away. So I do think, you're right. There is those mini leagues forming. I think that top three is one of them. Bows down to Dundalk is probably another, and then you got Sligo to Drogheda. And then you got UCD, just poor old UCD in a little league of their own there. So, I mean, it's certainly starting to finally take a little bit of shape after 20 matches, and we're starting to see some sort of shape starting to emerge in the league, which it doesn't normally take this long, but we're starting to get it now.
Yeah, look, and Gally, the thing is, going into the break, you just want to be part of one of those little mini leagues, like Niall's mentioned, that's looking up and not down behind you. If we can get the best of the rest to get to fourth and then start looking up.
Yeah, and like Bows will slowly, they won't slide down the table, but they'll slowly and surely walk their way, hopefully to where we are now, and we might be able to slip up. But like Shelbourne on their day, they're a really good squad. I know, look, people, there's this kind of sleeping giant, box office Damien Duff, but they are a decent squad. I mean, Drogheda are Norwegians either. I know they turned them over tonight by the odd goal, but Drogheda had a really decent start, a good season last year. They're on a bit of a downer at the minute, but you just don't want to get. You just need to get up. One place will do you. If we can just one place, because like Niall had said, the cup will determine a lot of it. Maybe we'll get a run in the cup as well. We're due a trip to the Aviva. We haven't had one in a couple of seasons, but we're sick of the place at one stage. But yeah, you want to, like you said, you want to be good at getting into those mini tables, but upwards. You don't want to be kind of scrapping around Shelbourne. Like Sligo, I don't see that gap. Like we'd have us and Shelbourne and maybe both, but us and Shelbourne have to go on a serious slide for Sligo to kind of come up and kind of hinder us a little bit. Like they'd have to beat us and Shelbourne every time we play them between now and the end, just for that. But yeah, look, I think the Cork game on Friday night, if we can get over that with 3 points, and look, there's a night you will take a scrappy win. It sets it up nicely now for the start of the second half of the season. It really does. And it gives you something to kind of try for.
Yeah, look, there was at times this year, lads, I think we were kind of spiraling and wondering where what we were meant to be as this team, and where we're meant to be in the league as well. But like I said, Niall, it's probably starting to level itself out now. And, what you got to do is, I'm sure Skip will start thinking the same, as you start looking at these little mini tables that's there, and if you can get the best of every other team in there, and then you start looking at the next team that's right above you and how quickly do you catch them. Like I'm sure he's trying to say, and how do we get a gap between ourselves and Shells? And if we can get that, it's right, let's start reeling in. Like I said, at one stage the gap between ourselves and Bows was 11 points. It's down to 4 now.
Yeah.
So I mean, they are on the slide, and we got to start taking advantage of that, because if they do have a turn up in form, you want to have the points on the board, and then then the pressure is back on them, and Both really haven't had that pressure this year, and I think Shells haven't either. They've kind of just cruised along, and you could say Pats is probably getting that bounce now, because they started off with immense pressure and then they couldn't handle it, and Clancy realized he had enough on that. And as a result of that, I think people kind of rid off Pats, and they've just slowly but surely just ground win after win after win. Tonight was a real statement win probably for them now, that puts them back in the map again. I
do think today's results on the whole seem to have that sort of feel about it, where it's kind of been maybe a pivotal week in the season, in the sense of, I think most teams are now starting to see where they're going to be for the second half of the year now. It's no longer a case of are you in this pot or are you in that pot. I think all the teams now have a fair idea of what they're going to be fighting for coming into the second half. And I mean, look, you look at the Dog at the moment, glass half full and all as we are. I mean, like, there's still no reason why we can't be looking at maybe fourth place and maybe hoping that might snatch a European spot again next season. I mean, I still think that I maintain that'd be a good season.
I think so, yeah.
For the squad, I think it would be. I think last year we can't get away from the fact that we probably, some people aren't going to want to hear this, but we probably overachieved in many respects last season. And what was O'Donnell's first season in charge? I mean, like finishing joint second with Derry, we probably had no right to do that, given the budget constraints and whatnot. Like, so, I mean, we did jump quite far. So I do maintain that a 4th-place finish would be a fantastic season for this Dundalk team. I mean, but that's going to be easier said than done, because it's not even so much Bows. I think Bows will fall and falter. I just think it's the likes of Shells. Yeah, I just think of Shells. There's something about that team. I mean, the sleeping giants, yeah, as they like to portray themselves as, and the world's against us and whatnot. But look, that whole narrative seems to be working for them, because Damien Duff's got a real tune out of him. Some terrific players. Farrell's a player I really rate highly. I think he's a fantastic player. Jack Moylan, is a player who would probably get into any team in the league at the moment.
Jack Moylan's
yeah, like they've got some terrific players. Like and the goalkeeper Cairns has had a renaissance in his career.
Absolutely super
class. So I mean, he just seems to have that knack in terms of getting these players to play above themselves. And I mean, like, they are a super team. And I mean, without being like, they're don't get me wrong, they're a dreadful team to watch at times, but they're getting results. And look at Cork and the John Caulfield. They sort of remind me of that kind of style of play. You know what I mean? They're not pretty to watch necessarily, but by God, they know how to get results. And I think Shells will be thereabouts, with ourselves and Bows, without a shadow of a doubt. And Shells could be actually the ones that you'd nearly be most worried about in terms of, pipping to that 4th place. Because I do think Bows will fall apart in the second half of the season. I think Declan Devine, in fairness to him, has done a fantastic job. I would have had Bows maybe in the bottom 3 or 4 at the start of the season if I was to predict. So, I mean, he's done amazing. But at the same time, I just think, they might have run their course now a wee bit. And today was probably a good example of that, losing to Cork in the fashion that they did.
Yeah.
Well, look, as I say, it's all focusing, I suppose, on Cork now. We've seen Pat Hooban, equal a record tonight. He scored his first goal for Dundalk against Cork. So there could be something nice in this as well if he was to go down there and score against Cork and actually take himself into the lead in that goal scoring record. Gents, look, I think we've probably talked this one to death. Thank you for joining us. Thanks, Gally, and thanks, Niall. Thanks everyone for all their comments. As always, thanks to Tony's Pizzeria for our pizza giveaway. Thanks to Donald Green and Player Fit once for our jersey, and of course Dundalk Village as our main sponsor on that, and that's Donald Green with his initiative there. So as we say, it's all roads, everything leads to Cork for Friday's show, and it's a big one now. We're going to kick on one way or we're getting dragged into another one behind us. I think that's one way to look at it, but until then, come on to town.